Welcome to the Making Sense of MarTech podcast, where we interview leaders and put them in the hot seat. I'm Jacqueline Friedman, founder of Monarch and global head of advisory for the MarTech Weekly. Let's dive in and meet Lauren Meyer, the chief marketing officer at SocketLabs. A little bit about her first. With a background in deliverability, anti-abuse, and email strategy, she has built a reputation of transforming complex email data into clear, actionable insights. As the former vice chair at Mong and the voice behind Send It Right, she champions consent-based marketing and prioritizes trust and transparency. Welcome, Lauren.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me. It's nice to be here. I do champion all those things you mentioned. Woohoo, let's go.
Awesome. Well, to start us off, we'll begin with a few quick questions to fire things up like a good IP warming. So first and foremost, what is the first MarTech tool you've ever used in your career?
Okay, so I don't know if Access counts, but I used to do a lot of Access database work in my first email job because I was processing like suppression files for a whole bunch of companies. But let's move on to other things. Like I was working in affiliate marketing space. So the company I worked for was using simultaneously GetResponse, Mailchimp, Toronto, Mad Mimi, Vertical Response, like basically any ESP that kind of existed back in like 2007. So yeah, I got to use all of them. It was
slim pickings then compared to today. That's for sure. All right. What is one marketing buzzword you wish you could ban forever?
It would have to be the blast. It is just so aggressive. It's one of those like first email provider that I was using for my Send It Right newsletter used to call it a blast. And they've actually changed that to something that's much more positive now. So it's one of those, like, I feel really good about that. Like,
that's
kudos
great.
to you guys who did it, right?
Are we going to just announce who made a change for the better?
Squarespace is
Good
better.
job, Squarespace. Good for them. I'm glad they did the right thing. Okay. What is the biggest marketing mistake or mess up you've witnessed or done yourself?
Okay. Well, thankfully it wasn't my mistake, but when I was working for a past ESP as like the head of deliverability, I was dealing with the aftermath of one of our customers who had just transitioned from their past ESP. And without them knowing it, that past ESP had been like automatically handling their suppression files and all the people that, were complaining and unsubscribing for the entire time they were there. And I think you know where this is going. So once they transitioned, they didn't download and apply that suppression file to their contact list. So on their first send through us, they generated a little more than 3,000 spam complaints. And it was such a massive number, 200,000, contacts that they're sending to, that they didn't believe it, right? Like they were like, this must be a reporting issue. This must be you. This must be something you're doing. And we're like, and even I was like, guys, this is wrong. This can't be right. Lo and behold, it was correct. It's just that, those real complaints were coming from people who had been suppressed in some cases, hadn't been mailed to in more than 2 years. And some of them were spam complainers. So really, really painful, right?
Makes me very glad whenever someone asks for kind of quick migration advice. My first thing is back up your unsubscribed list, no matter what.
The only thing that's potentially even more important than your actual contact list that you're sending to, right?
Without a doubt. Oh man, that just gives me heart palpitations thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is one tool you cannot live without as a deliverability first marketer?
Okay. Fine, right. And I think a lot of times people are going to probably go to Google Postmaster tools, which is very important. Everyone should be signing up for that. But my favorite one is About My Email. So it's actually, you can go to it at aboutmy.email. That's the email, the website address. This is something that was created by Steve Atkins from Word to the Wise. And it kind of gives you that immediate reality check on your email configuration. And it was, it's built by Steve, who is a very technical person. He's smart. I trust him to kind of understand compliance and all the nuances of those different mailbox providers. And Marcel Becker from Yahoo, who's the postmaster there, actually previously said, if it passes About My Email, it's very likely compliant with Yahoo, right? So I think any large scale sender who's ever had an issue should plug it in. You just add it to your contact list. It makes you feel good. Yeah. So check it out.
I love a free tool that is approved by the postmasters. That's
exactly
all you can ask for.
You don't get that stamp of approval very often. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Last rapid fire question we ask everyone.
Yeah.
Who is someone you admire, whether it's professionally or personally?
All right. Well, I'm going to go with Jennifer Nisfola-Lance, who is within the email industry. Hopefully, a bunch of you know her. She's currently working at Kickbox. She's got this sense of calm, and she's patient with customers and with everybody else. She cares a lot about the role and the responsibility of doing right by email and working in anti-abuse. And when we go to conferences, she's that person that she's a great moderator. She's a great speaker, but she also just asks these questions, just coming from this place of curiosity. And it's one of those where you're damn, I kind of barely really understand that question that you're asking because you understand the technical nuance of everything, right? So she kind of, not to say she doesn't care what people think, I'm sure she does, but she just has this kind of attitude that's just fun-loving, and she's a big person to be around. So
Yes, and she is excellent at moderating panels. I saw her at Inbox Expo just kill it.
she's just hilarious too, right? She was works in some comedies. It's just my favorite thing.
Hard to do.
It really is, very much so. Yeah.
All right, to set the stage a little bit about you. So beginning in email in 2006, after pivoting from finance, you fell straight into deliverability and never looked back. Now as a CMO, which transition throughout your career challenged you the most?
Yeah, and I think obviously there's a lot of challenges in marketing in any role really that you're in when you're working in like a SaaS company. But I spent so many years like staying in my lane, like fighting for deliverability, pushing for best practices, playing like the compliance cop or like the Debbie Downer, right? Like you're never really in the company money. You're always kind of burning people. Right? When you're in deliverability, you're usually just called in after something's gone wrong. And so you dig into the data, you find the thing that's broken, you fix it, and boom, like measurable outcome, everybody's happy, right? But in marketing, it's like a whole different ballgame where, I wasn't prepared, I guess, for like how subjective or maybe like how squishy it is. Like you rarely get that kind of data back clarity. Like, everybody has an opinion and suddenly you're kind of like the one who's like pitching these ideas. Attribution is a mess. Particularly when, it takes dozens of touch points and repetition and emotional context and trust building, like all of these things maybe to get somebody to care and then eventually for sales to do their thing, right? Like we have all this evidence that proves that people don't approach brands until they're basically kind of ready to buy. Like they've done most of their research and they just kind of need you to not screw it up. But like you need to get on that list. Like you need to be in the realm where they understand you, right? And I think it took me way too long to realize the fact that I really needed to like advocate just as hard for marketing within my own company, right? Like it's just, you're asking these people to kind of like trust this narrative that you're building and maybe they don't agree with it or they don't really get it. You just don't get those like, aha, this is broken. Like it's just so easy for that mental shift from like fixing problems to kind of just living in this gray area all the time. I think has just been really kind of a hard corner to turn. And I think it's like, I still kind of suck at it, to be honest. And, it's like if you're old enough to have seen Zoolander, just maybe like I just have a hard time turning left, right? But I'm working on it still.
Yeah, it's hard to have quick when you're so used to quick fixes and immediate.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like you really have to build that foundation. And I think a lot of times like people in organizations don't understand marketing. They're not in marketing. And so they don't get how important it is to kind of like build those foundational, like what is your ICP? Who are you going after? What is your kind of your market, your audience? You can't skip that. And I think that's where like I sort of did because everybody was like, it doesn't matter because nobody was really a marketer enough to kind of know how important that stuff was, right? So don't skip it. It's like, go for it.
Yes, don't skip it. Just like I wouldn't assume I'm a full stack engineer. Don't assume you're a marketer just because you consume marketing.
Yeah, right. Like just because you think that you have a really good name for a mascot for our company, don't share that maybe. Oh, great.
Exactly. So you are an advocate and often talk about consent-based marketing. Should every marketer? What's the most misunderstood myth about list growth?
I do talk about consent, but I think there's a big difference between like consent and attention. Like you still have to earn the attention. Like I feel like there's a lot of marketers today that are still kind of operating under this assumption that once someone gives you their email address, you're golden, right? Like, cool, let's just go. This is great. We've got the consent. We can do what we want. That's just the beginning of the relationship. It's almost like you're just having like this handshake with someone, right? And I think the real challenge that we need to be focusing on is not the consent. It's staying relevant. It's staying memorable and not becoming kind of like this buzzing fly that's sort of just in their face within their inbox, right? And I think, the bar has been set higher now that people are drowning in so much technology and so much noise and so much AI. So, I think it's just, you have to move beyond, did they opt in? I think it's more like, why did they opt in? What did we promise to them? Are we delivering on that promise in a way that's actually worthy of their time, not, just benefiting us? So I think we really just need to get like a little bit creative with the way that we get attention from folks. And, like Gmail now is offering that subscription management center, right? So users can see how often brands are emailing them and they can also check out the content that they're getting. So like in a split second, within a couple of clicks, they can decide if you're welcome in their inbox anymore or not. And then the unsubscribe button is right there too. So I think it's not about consent. It's really about everything that comes after that, right? Like, are they going to shake your hand and then become your friend or just kind of be like, that guy's weird, fishy handshake, right? So I think, it's just, you want them to feel good about your brand. And I think that's something that people often forget, especially when you have those very large lists and you start to see just the numbers and not remember the specific people that are behind those email addresses.
Agreed. So what I'm hearing is one, setting expectations both for your own internal team, but also the customer.
Mm-hmm.
But also, in addition, actually providing something of value to them as opposed to value to you as a business.
Yes, for sure. Right. Like put them first. Like it's not just like a way to say it. It's not just me being up here like, best practices. Like it really is actually how you succeed, how you build like loyal followers as opposed to like just people that are like, I get this in my inbox. Maybe I'll look for a sale.
So you've risen now to executive leadership. With this experience under your belt, how do you level set with brand side marketers and teams thinking through consent?
Yeah. So I think, this is one of those where like I feel lucky for the fact that I've actually spent like most of my career in the trenches. And so I get to, kind of look back on that and remember all the pain that I felt along the way as that practitioner. But I also try to stay like really close with the people in my own company who do talk to our customers regularly. We're talking about their customer use cases, weird bugs that they're facing. So we have to figure out like, it's not just like, do we have good tech? It's what's your experience? Like what happens when we actually help you, if we do help you, right? So I think those kind of conversations help me stay grounded so that I'm like kind of speaking from a place of reality, not just theory or things that I kind of knew a couple of years ago. And then I also I host these virtual roundtables at SocketLabs. It really anytime you can join like sessions where you're in a room with other people who sit in your seat or who are like close to your seat, I think it just gives you that chance to kind of jam out with other people and really just come up with some good ideas. And these are all people that are living in the weeds and like dying to help and dying to like be helped and have ideas. So I think it's just having all of that kind of awareness around me really just helps me like continue to understand what challenges they're facing. And I think I got to kind of think about the fact that it's not just like, you got to follow the best practice. It really is like, what are the bandwidth issues, right? Like who's on maternity leave, who's out sick, who's on vacation for 3 weeks because they went to Europe. Like there's all these things that you're doing. You're chasing approvals. You've got these unclear briefs that kind of just get twisted in translation. And like, there's all these things that marketers are dealing with and understanding that bandwidth really just like, it's not infinite. Like there is a line. There are places where momentum stalls or leadership just changes their mind and shifts gears and goes in a different direction. And all of a sudden your top priority project is just like, never mind, like we're not even doing that. So like, I think sort of being aware of that and being aware of like the constraints that marketers live in from a technology perspective, just trying to give people that empathy and come at solutions from a place of creativity, right? Like, it's not just like, here's what you do. It's like, okay, well, here's what you could do. Here's another way that you could do that based on what you've told me about the way that your technology works or your business model works. Like, I don't think this is going to work for you. So here's another option. Or like throw it to them and let them kind of just figure it out based on the proper amount of context that you're giving them. Let them understand the issue, but not from like start talking about SMTP protocols.
It's so much more fun too.
Yeah, it is. But only if the person's nerding out with you, I think, right?
Yes. Well, speaking of nerding out, email marketing is often treated kind of like plumbing, essential, but underfunded, not very sexy, not very interesting. How did you fight for email seat at the strategy table?
Yeah. So I think one of the best ways that I've seen people win here, especially on that brand marketer side, is by running small proof of concept tests. And actually somebody from a massive brand joined one of our roundtables recently and was just talking about this. So just like, if you can show that thing that you're asking for is already showing traction, even at like a really small scale, like this company has multiple global regions and kind of subsidiaries. So like if you can just test with one of those and see some success, that could be the thing that you need to kind of prove this out, right? Like maybe it's as simple as like even just testing messaging on LinkedIn and then turning that into like the basis for an email campaign with your best performing content. It's just like you're bringing data to the table and you're not asking for like a huge budget up front. You're just saying like, look, we did this thing with duct tape or with, limited resources and it worked and it's something we should try to pursue. Like now imagine what we could do with proper support behind this, right? So I think email doesn't just look strategic and, because you have to connect it to like the business goals, right? Like I think oftentimes there's just this huge disconnect between the two. And so kind of getting into the minds of executives, like they aren't ignoring email because they don't care. They're ignoring it because they don't understand it. They don't really get how it connects to their goals because nobody's told them. Like we're marketers. We're so busy marketing externally that we forget about explaining this stuff internally. So like, I think trying to get into those mindsets of like, are they trying to just get leads to grow revenue? Are they trying to get acquired? Is there a big partnership move in the works that you can get involved in? Like, how can you tie your email program to those things that matter? So it doesn't just feel like plumbing, right? It's not just running in the background. It actually is something that is going to drive business impact. So I think that's, start the marketing internally because, as much as I wish it was, your job is not just do email. It's like translating that value into something that's going to get you buy-in. That's really the bridge.
Yeah, translating. And I imagine your finance background helps a little bit with some of that translation too.
You would think so, but I actually used to fall asleep every time I did my like Series 7 studying. So like, I was like, this isn't for me. I think I need something.
Fair enough.
If there's one theme that's followed me at every stop in my MarTech career, it's trying to get good data into the hands of marketers. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about our sponsor, Hightouch, the leading composable CDP and AI decisioning platform. Companies like Domino's, Chime, Aritzia, and PetSmart trust Hightouch to power their data. And here's the kicker. 90% of customers have a real use case live in production within their first week. That means you can implement a world-class CDP in months rather than the usual years-long headache. That's why top brands choose Hightouch to personalize every customer interaction at scale. See what Hightouch can do for you at hightouch.com/MSOM.
All right, shifting gears a little bit to talk a little bit more about the techie side. You've previously said, and I think everyone should know this by now, but if they don't, bad data is the root cause of deliverability issues. How should marketers rethink data hygiene, both at sign up and for the long term? And how does your advice change from B2B to B2C clients?
Yeah. So I think, across the board, like everyone needs to get permission if possible. Like, I know some of you are going to still send cold emails. So like, I'm not going to speak to you and give you ideas, but like you should be speaking to people who are going to receive that email who hopefully like are expecting to receive it. So I think that's for everybody. But, I think more specific to B2B, like you are going to probably see like a higher churn rate on the email addresses. People are switching jobs. So those email addresses go dark. So let's say if you're only emailing quarterly, or if you've just got like this one big push that you do every year, like you're kind of setting yourself up for a lot of hard bounces that potentially could lead to deliverability issues. I think if you're sending more consistently, what you'll see is that those inactive addresses kind of get phased out like a little bit more organically, and they look more normal, right? The rates don't really spike up that one time you send a year. So I think it really helps you kind of just like, meter that out. So I think just, give people the option to sign up with their personal email address as well. I think that's the other thing is, within B2B, we're so focused on like knowing the company that they work for. So sales has a lead to chase, but like people do switch jobs. And so I think at that point, you've lost the thread. Like that's the end of your story with them, right? If you choose to provide them with the ability to have like a Gmail or a Hotmail address, not only are you serving people who maybe don't have a job right now, who might get a job and be working for a company that you're trying to actually reach or something like that. But if they're choosing to give you that personal Gmail address or Hotmail address, it's actually like a really strong signal that the content that you're sending actually matters to them enough to kind of allow you into that personal space. And I think it kind of helps keep that relationship alive if they pop up in another company, because you've already you just stayed present in their life instead of waiting for them to re-opt in with their new email address. I think the other difference probably is engagement looks different, really low opens, because a lot of B2B filters don't preload those images, right? Like my SocketLabs inbox, our IT team has turned them off by default. So even if I've read your email, you're not going to know that, right? Other mailbox providers or filters, they open to basically everything. So you're going to think that your opens are great. You're like, oh my gosh, we have such high engagement. And you don't. So I think don't really obsess over your engagement rates, particularly in B2B, because those mailbox provider filters, those third-party filters are much more focused on your bounce rates. How high is your spam complaint rate? And is your authentication and your configuration correct? So pay more attention to that kind of stuff, right? Are you triggering blocks at Proofpoint, other places like that?
That makes sense. And kind of gearing into what SocketLabs is building, it's around insight-driven infrastructure. I have a question outside of us nerdy folks who like to know these details. Is there a risk in giving marketers too much data without the skill to actually interpret it?
Yes, absolutely. Like I couldn't agree with anything more probably in the world. Like I have seen so many marketers who are just drowning in dashboards, who have like the most expensive tools on the market. And they admit, like, I don't really understand a lot of that stuff. So I really just kind of stay on the dashboard. Like that actually tends to be enough for a lot of people until you have an issue or until you've got a lot of complexity. Like you just see all these graphs and metrics, but you don't know what they mean. So, it gets lost, right? And then you have this paralysis and you're kind of chasing false assumptions. And there's just all this noise that's happening. So I think, it's a real question that we're trying to solve is like, what decision is this data actually helping me make, right? If it's not actionable, what's the point of telling you? It's not helping you with anything. It's just giving you stress or confusion, right? So we're trying to simplify things by really directing customers to like where the problem lives first. So it kind of like, it's bucketed into a couple of different issues. Like maybe it's engagement or list hygiene, or it's your authentication, things like that, so that you can kind of jump past that initial question of like, what's wrong when you're just shaking and sweating, right? And just jump right into like the problem solving mode, really just give proper context to people so that they can focus on what matters. And I think this is like a great place where AI can actually shine, like not just as a content generator like it is now, but really moving beyond even just like data aggregation, but just like, what is the way that we can make this easier for people to make decisions and then take action on those decisions, right? So imagine if you could say like, why did my bounce rate spike this week? Or why did I get blacklisted? And it gives you an answer. And then it says, here, would you like to create a rule within your configuration that helps you bypass this issue next time or separates the traffic because it was based on this thing? Like, so that's where we're going. Like, we're not there yet, but I think that's the dream, right? Like, that's where we're headed and focusing on.
That's exciting. And I love that you really honed in on certain marketers that to most would be in the most luxurious, most advanced place. You've got all the dashboards, which is in and of itself a feat. But if you could ban any metric from a dashboard, what would it be?
So much power. What do I do? Honestly, this is like the easiest question. It's the inbox footprint rate. Like, people put so much gospel into this rate. And it's the first thing I hear. It's not like my delivery rate is 98%. It's my inbox rate is 99%. So I don't understand. There shouldn't be a problem. And I think it's really important for people to understand. And a lot of people don't understand this, that those inbox placement rates tend to be based on seed testing, where the vendor basically just like adds a bunch of fake Gmail addresses and Yahoo addresses, let's say like 20 of each of all these different mailbox providers. And then they just track where your mail lands, right? But the problem is that those addresses are robots, essentially, right? They're not opening, clicking, and kind of like engaging with your mailbox the way that you do, right? They're not opening that one email 15 times and then moving it to a folder and then maybe forwarding it to a friend and then another one you open once, but then like you're doing all these kind of weird things within your inbox, and mailbox providers can see that, right? Like they have this kind of data so they can tell the difference. They know the difference between a seed test and a real human. So even if, Bobby Robot 123 at Gmail goes to the inbox, it doesn't mean that my production list is actually going to the inbox, right? And I've seen so many people just panic because their inbox rate tanked, even though nothing actually changed in their real life metrics when you look at their opens and their clicks and their delivery rates and things, right? It was just the seeds, which were wacky, right? At the same time, I've seen people that totally ignore deliverability issues when those do pop up because the seed test said that everything was fine, or because they're so tired of chasing past false positives that now they're burned. They're like, no, I'm not chasing that one. Like, forget it. It's obviously not real. It's fine, right? So I think it's remember that the inbox rate is not real. It's not driven by data that's coming from the mailbox providers who know what actually went to the inbox. And it's not driven by recipients, not yet anyway. Like, they don't have that information. So it's just creating this false sense of competence or false alarm. And either way, it's dangerous. So like, let's just ban the word inbox placement until we know that it's real. Okay. Right. And just be careful with your seed tests.
I love that.
Yeah.
And the market is full of vendors promising this. The inbox placement, like one, obviously it'd be nice if we could ban it from every dashboard, but how can buyers and customers really distinguish between a signal and sales spin?
Yeah, well, I think it's, top of the mountain. I would say, like, if anyone ever guarantees inbox placement or really kind of anything within email run, because the only thing they can guarantee is when it doesn't work, they'll give you your money back. Like, they can't guarantee what goes to the inbox,
only
right?
if you have a good service level agreement in place with you that you've negotiated.
Right? Yes, exactly. So I think that's obviously the biggest red flag out there. But what a vendor can do, I think, is explain your risks when you're migrating, when you're doing certain actions within your day-to-day kind of, program. If they're helping you fix problems, like, do you reach out and you get a response from a human? Do you get a response via Slack or a ticket? Do you get a response from AI? Because I've heard that there are huge companies in our industry who laid off other people and now are just using AI responses for everything else. So it's like, you can have that kind of support, or you could actually talk to a human. So like, what kind of experience do you need based on your experience level and kind of the things that you're good at and the things you think you're going to need help with? And then of course, like, you need to have the tooling to get the job done, right? And to make those smarter choices as well. And I think we've got a couple of those pieces within most ESPs, but especially when it comes to making smarter choices and like being like, oh, I have an idea, I should do this. And then actually doing it, I think is really hard. So this is where I think support matters a whole lot, because they can walk you through this stuff, right? If you could have the fanciest platform in the world, but if it breaks and you don't know how to fix it, like, you're toast, right? That's the end of it. So I think it's just, ask them not just about the tech, but like, who will be there? Who am I actually going to be talking to when the send fails, when the bounce reason's super vague and I don't know what to do, or when the IPs are blacklisted, right? Like, we have people like Brian Godekson, one of the most talented deliverability people I've ever met, who's the person answering your tickets versus some of this other stuff. So I think that's the real differentiator, but just do your diligence, right? Like, whatever ESP is best for me, probably not best for you. It just depends on our goals are super aligned.
Yeah. To overlay what you said, in particular, I consider customer support success as a product in and of itself. And if you are not actively, and this is any vendor, not just deliverability or ESPs, for me, that's one of the most important building blocks of will this vendor work for my needs? What is the remediation plan and approach? Do they blame the customer? I've come across that before. And so I'm a huge proponent of really digging deep with the customer support, customer success tiers, and also current customers. And when things went wrong, asking them what happened.
Totally. I love that. Yeah. I think it's tough, like as a marketer, like you can't really shout about your customer success because everyone does, right? Like everyone's like, we have the best support ever, so like no one really believes, but there are ways if you dig, if you poke at that question a little bit, you will get answers that give you a good sense of like what the real reality is going to be.
Yes. And pro tip, if anyone says they have an award for their customer support success, look to see if it's paid for.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there.
A big marketing budget, not a big support team, right?
Correct. All right. So taking a step back and thinking about the industry at large, one, finally, Apple, their mail privacy protection and shifting inbox tabs has finally caught up with Gmail 10 years later. How should marketers rely less on opens and more on meaningful engagement?
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like mail privacy protection really just put spotlight on the fact that opens are not a very reliable metric. So it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, cool. And so now it's almost become trendy to dunk on open rates and just say they're noisy, they're just trash. But despite the noise, bots, there's image preloading, there's privacy changes that are happening. They all are going to mess with your numbers. And that's through clicks as well. That's even true of conversions. Attribution is messy. So open rates in my mind, especially when it comes to deliverability, are still very useful if you use them directionally. Right? Open pixels don't get triggered when mails go into the spam folder. So figure if you've got open rates that are typically 40% and that drops to 6% with Hotmail, you know that you probably have a spam folder issue as opposed to just a snooze fast of an email, right? So I think there's ways for you to kind of look at that data and just, over time, as far back as you can go and say, are we just trending downwards? Is there something we can do with that? Is this a list collection issue where we're bringing in people that are less engaged? Is this just that our content is the same thing all the time? What is the problem? But I think open rates are part of the story to tell that. But then I think it's, how can you track other metrics downstream but more reliably, perhaps clicks, again, faulty as well, oftentimes inflated and things like that. But what about conversions? What about replies? Is there a way that you can insert a poll into your email that kind of has a different kind of engagement that lets you know maybe it's, it's from a real person, even just website visits, right? If you're in direct to consumer and you get purchases directly from email, when you hit send at 10:15 a.m., do you see a little bit of a surge on the website and a little bit of surge in revenue? Those are things that you can track more reliably and trace them back to email a little bit. But yeah, you really kind of have to get creative and just find ways to build your email content to drive other types of engagements that would be more trackable, more meaningful activity that you can kind of trust a little bit more, right? At the same time, I think just remember that engagement really isn't the end all be all. There is a lot of stuff that happens downstream, but also sometimes even your best readers are just not going to open. They're not going to click. Maybe they read the subject line. Maybe they see your brand name. It still helps. So I think it's look beyond the metrics and just try to track behavior across all of these different touch points if you can.
You make it sound so easy.
I know, don't I? It sounds so awesome.
I'm in full agreement ever more with vanity metrics are just signals. Use them directionally to understand where to go. And that's it. Nothing more, nothing less.
In advertising and just not have that signal at all. So it's, it's better than nothing. Use it properly, right? Responsibly.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of responsibility, AI is just everywhere and sending email, everything is just still very manual, no matter how many companies tout they have AI. Where do you see AI incrementally rearranging email marketing, tooling, or how we use email? We haven't really seen major platform shifts yet that went from I am coding in Dreamweaver or in Be-Free in my white label WYSIWYG.
For sure. It feels like we had just kind of that wave of ooh, I can build this thing. And it's I could be the first to market, or it's the easiest thing that they could build. And they're kind of just getting their feet wet with AI. So I think that's kind of where a lot of those generative content sort of things came from. I have seen a couple of other ones that get deeper into segmentation or things like that. But I think the problem that I see today is just that a lot of these tools, it's not based on data enough. It's not, like you said, it's not integrated into your workflow. It's very generalized data. They don't understand your audience. So I think usually what you would get from those kind of more data-driven results is just kind of meh. It's not really good enough. It might pass the test a little bit, but it's not really point for your audience. So I think that's where you're going to fall into that sea of sameness and never really kind of get past it. So I think, the next wave that I see, the next kind of iteration is going to be starting to use the data more responsibly responsibly, right? Like, mailbox providers, ESPs, everybody's been using like machine learning data for like years and years, 10 years, 20 years, right? Like they've had this. And I think now it's just like you have to figure out how to get the data structure and all of the context into an AI so that you could sit it on top of your data and say, tell me this, do that. But if the data is trash or if it's just not organized in a good way and you're not kind of, giving the right prompts and adding a ton of context and then, fact checking that context and all these things, it's going to be trash. So I think it's just a matter of we're going to see some tools come out and we need to kick the tires and make sure that those actually, like those results are real and those make sense and they're kind of helping us achieve our goals. But we'll eventually get to where, and this is what we're building, is just really using our email people to like build something that is very data driven, very email data driven, and it's factoring in all these things and there's weightings, but doing it very incrementally, very slowly and not releasing it until we're ready. So I think, it's just, we're going to see less people just being like, oh, like write my newsletter and populate the images. Like, I think it really is going to be more like, help me keep my system from like blowing up or like help me diagnose this problem. And so like AI could become that real co-pilot, but I don't think it can replace a lot of the work. There's just spaghetti all over the place, right? Like there's this system over here and it doesn't talk to that system. So there's a human that kind of needs to be that delivery person between all this stuff and make it work.
Agreed. And speaking of kind of trash, maybe taking out the trash in that regard, cleaning up, you've been obviously very vocal about consent and cleanliness practices. What is your take on brands who are still buying lists in the year of 2025? Are they delusional, are they desperate, or that's completely dysfunctional?
I honestly think it's probably all of the above, a mixture of all of the above. There was a marketer who worked for my company a couple of years ago who was like, everybody buys lists. Like he told me that when I put that into a blog post of like, you need to not be buying lists, you need to get permission. He was like, that's just the most boring old advice ever. And I'm like, but it's the most important, right? Like it still matters. Just because people are doing something doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do for your business, because it's, email is a relationship channel. Like unless you are just getting to get revenue directly from one email and you don't care about ever connecting with that person again, you need to like, kind of like nourish those relationships just like you do in real life, right? So if you're desperate to hit a number, if you're delusional about what list quality even means or how you get it, if you've got like these internal processes or like these internal pushes from leadership that are just, they're making it feel like buying is easier than building, right? Like I've heard from past marketers working for another ESP that are like, getting leads is hard. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Like it's super hard, right? But like just
it's like you have a career to do it.
Exactly, right. And it's like I get it. I get the pressure, but you also need to realize like what is happening downstream of that. Like sure, you cut the corner, but then you got a ticket and you were late to your thing anyway because the police stopped you and sat there for 15 minutes, right? So like, it's really important to do right by recipients. And I think, it's just, if you're going to buy a list, like honestly, just, I don't know, use it for data, use it to try to get information on your ICP and learn like, what are their roles? Like what other data do you have on them that tell you, like make up who that person is so that you can speak to them better and segment them better. And hopefully if you're doing cold email, make an outreach that actually helps them or isn't alone.
There is no such thing. I do appreciate the firmographic approach. I do see value, maybe not in the concept of list buying, but better segmentation, understanding this is very B2B, but like grading and who is within your ICP and who you even want to talk to. So there is value as long as it's not used for PII and bad purposes.
Yeah, it's just, AI has made it so easy to just like spray and pray now. And they think that they're being smart with these templates, but like you see the same stuff all the time now. So it's like, you need to have done your research. You need to have like some sort of angle that resonates with that person or that business. Like you can't just like throw it out and hope for the best, right? It's a different world now, truly.
For sure. Do you think AI will ever be able to think like a deliverability expert? Always going to be part science, part human art? Because I think everyone's always just like, there's only one answer, when in reality, it's actually probably like 20 different variables that you have to tinker with.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where like, AI can help, but I don't think it can replace deliverability people, like the human nuance that goes into like all of, like, there are hundreds, probably thousands of different mailbox providers that all have their own bounce codes and they're not following like the standards and all these things, right? And so there's this like tribal historical knowledge that's been kind of gathered over the past 30 years that people have been sent email and, it's shared in Slack channels and listservs and like these behind the scenes places. And then it's added to somebody's doc and shared when someone's like, help me, I have a problem, right? So I think it's, AI would be good at like the anomaly detection, like helping you track the trends, helping you realize when something's off. But from there, I think just it will take so much work to add the proper context to that AI model to be able to catch all the edge cases, right? So I think it can help with like the general stuff, right? Like if you're a deliverability person that is just saying like segment your list to 90-day active, like if you're giving that same stale advice, you're not going to have a job. Like, I think you really need to kind of lean into more like, this is what AI can do. This is how far it gets it. Now I need to be better. I need to be understanding a little bit more of the technical aspects of like how these things are set up, how they connect to your infrastructure, like going deeper into that part or going deeper into like the strategic aspects and the creative part, understanding your ICP, right? Like you could talk to customers or AI could, but like you are the one who's going to get better, more human feedback from them, right? So I think we're all just really throwing spaghetti at the wall and it's really messy. And I think it's going to continue to be messy as it evolves. So how does AI keep up with that? Unless you have people that are keeping up with it themselves and training it, right?
Yeah, I see AI a lot as the difference between going to see the doctor and going to get over-the-counter prescription medication. Like, you know what? I've got a fever, but it is not so high that I need to immediately go to the hospital and see if there's something more versus I've got a low-grade fever. I just need to sleep and take some meds to help me get through this.
For sure.
And you always still need that doctor if something is well beyond the easy things that you can kind of try, the symptomatic things versus there might be a diagnosis here. And we need to really understand systemically what's going on.
Yeah, there's the diagnostics and then there's, like you said, there's the science or the art.
Exactly. You got to have both if you're going to be a good doctor. That's for sure. All right. Our last question we ask everyone. Who is someone we should have on the podcast? And so we cut out. But
okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I think the one that came to mind immediately is
Kirsty Esparza. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She works at Twilio.
Yeah. So she's like historically been in deliverability. She worked for like Twilio. She worked for, I think, Vertical Response and like a bunch of different ESPs. And she's like a people manager. Now with Twilio, she's kind of sitting between deliverability product and operations. So like her role is more technical, but it's kind of like she's just like the glue. Like I feel like she's like the mama bear of all the ladies. Like when we get together at conferences, like she's great. She listens, she's thoughtful. She has a way of speaking about her and she wants to bring other women with her as well. Like her, when someone asked her once, like, I was like, what do you do to help women or whatever? And she was like, anytime I move up, I immediately like look behind me and grab another person and pull them up too. And it's like, that's how it needs to be. Right. So yeah. So I mean, and she's just interesting to talk to. So yeah.
Well, would love an introduction.
Okay, happy to do it. Yeah.
And on that note, thank you so much for being on the pod.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was really fun chatting.
Where can folks find you?
Well, that's a good question. So I do have a website, send-it-right.com, and that's where you can sign up for my newsletter or just kind of read the blog and kind of pal around, find some good experts that you should follow. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active over there and I post a lot, just like, general best practices, but getting really deeper into it. So connect with me, come have a chat. I also offer 20-minute consulting stuff because I love to just jam out with people. So if you want to just kind of chat, again, go to my website and sign up.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.